All right, guys, I'm glad to be back in the saddle. Interestingly enough, I've recently started on a Bonesplitterz army, and I thought, what a better place than to start talking about Bonesplitterz here on the channel. Apologize too for the lengthy delay in any videos coming out, but life just got busy, but glad to be back. So let's just dig in. I thought I'd start going through the book, talking about some of the Bonesplitterz, like the War Scrolls, their different clans, but today I thought I'd go through Alliegance abilities. I think this book, this new book by GW, especially with the new Cities of Sigmar that just came out, they're both really great examples of what some quality rules writing in a very quality game can look like. So I'm pretty glad to go through this. There's some great synergies that go on. There's some awesome abilities for spellcasting, and it kind of changes the way that this army plays. In the past, it was competitive for a while with massed bodies, especially with shooting, just because of the way that the battalions broke down. But now it kind of is starting to shape up, at least in my opinion, as kind of a large casting and melee army. Interestingly enough, I mean, as an orc army, it should be very melee focused, but the Bonesplitterz, at least lore-wise, follow, their Wargog prophets and Wardocs and all of this, and they have magically enhanced tattoos, so it only makes sense that they would be pretty magically inclined. If you think about it too, that makes sense from a model standpoint. There are 4 heroes, 3 heroes that are spellcasters, and 1 that is not a spellcaster, and they're all on foot, other than one of the spellcasters is riding a boar. But basically, it's an army that is basically focused around its heroes doing magic, and then the army supports it through massed bodies. They can be rather tanky as well. Just from the few games that I've played, I've been able to get some pretty interesting, put some buffs on them and then do some interesting things with them. They're very survivable. Aside from the fact that most of them don't have a good armor save at all, they are actually relatively survivable in that. But let's just go into what the Alliegance abilities look like here, and I'll just talk further. And then hopefully we'll get out a couple more videos and just talk about some interesting synergies that I see that are kind of accompanied to these Alliegance abilities. So the first one is called Bonesplitterz War Clans. There are 3 different war clans that people really... that you can play your Bonesplitterz army as, or you can be them as just Bonesplitterz regular Alliegance. The war clans are all interesting in their own way. There's one that kind of sticks out, and I think a lot of people have been talking about Drakfoot, but in my honest opinion, I think that Icebone is probably a better way to go. I'll talk about that in a later video, but just thinking about it, the benefits as opposed to what you can do. I know that on a couple of videos, like Mr. Mephisto talks about the ethereal, and it really only applies to ghosts. Ethereal amulet doesn't give you the keyword, so it's really hard. It doesn't give you that ability. It just gives you a purpose like the ability. So it's kind of interesting. I think Drakfoot is not the great build here. I think Icebone War Clan, the Icebone War Clan, is really the hot pick for Rend, as well as the other things they can do. Anyways, going on, the next one is called Tireless Trackers. Tireless Trackers gives up to half of your Bonesplitterz army, rounding up, the ability to move 5 inches in the beginning of the game. This is huge because it doesn't mean you need to move closer to the army. There's nothing that says that you need to move closer to their army or move back. Where you can move wherever you want to, closer to the objective. Get off the objective. This is actually really helpful, especially because a lot of your foot people are already struggling with some speed because they need to get into hand-to-hand so that your wizards can be safe. And so this is an interesting little extra push. I also find there's great tactical acumen in the fact that you can move back. I was playing the other day the Cities of Sigmar book, and their Griffin, their general on Griffin is very fast and very strong, and you don't want to engage him too often. Although he is a monster, so this book kind of excels in that way. But just the fact that I could, stack up on the line and then move back once he deployed that once the game started. That was huge because it basically nullified any kind of charge that he thinks he was going to get. Going on, you got War Paint. This is a huge ability and it's so good. Now you roll a dice each time that you allocate a wound or mortal wound to a model on a 6-up. The wound is negated. Funny thing though, Dragfoot would negate this negation. So you fighting, if you're Dragfoot, you'd be actually pretty good against Bonesplitterz, kind of ironically, because they would just negate your War Paint. But that's a funny aside. It is a very good extra save to every wound, every mortal wound that comes through. And the fact that there are several spells and other things that help you with saves in this book can actually make you pretty defensive. You would think that a naked orc with no armor on wouldn't be able to do that, but the fact that you can stack some saves, get some Mystic Shield on them, you can. I've seen a couple units get to 3+ with a 6+ mortal, just extra save on them, which is huge. Then you got Monster Hunters. This is like their old rule, except for you get to pick, and that's the big one. So whenever you're within 3 inches, a friendly Bonesplitterz unit is within 3 inches of a monster before it's chosen to fight and pile in, you get to pick one of the following, which is actually really important too. If you know that monster is going to kill, let's say you're engaged with a monster with 2 units and one of them is going to get killed, you got to think about what you're going to do. And the book also provides a lot of +1 to hits that last until your next hero phase. So if you get charged by a monster, don't be wasting your ability on that. You get to either pile in an extra 3 inches, good for big mobs. You get to add 1 to your hit rolls when attacking the monster. Situational. And then my personal favorite, Berserk Strength, gives on 6s onto wound, unmodified 6s to wound, automatically cause a mortal wound in addition to damage, which is huge, especially for knocking that beast down a couple notches. It might actually be a really good play to do, have Berserk Strength, knock them down a couple, let them kill that unit, and then another unit piles in with the +1 to hit or something so you can do extra damage. Then you get Spirit of the Beast. If you happen to kill a monster and you do not have to take a Battleshock test for Bonesplitterz units if any enemy monster was slain by wounds inflicted by the unit. So in the same turn that you slay something, you do not have to take Battleshock. Although Battleshock is pretty dangerous for this army because they are only riding on 5s or 6s, it is really helpful for that. The very last one is the command ability that you get for being a Bonesplitter. It is Bonesplitterz Wah. It's the same as the one in Iron Jaws, as well as this one and the Big Wah. But basically, you have your general and everything wholly within 18 inches. You add up that many units that are wholly within 18 inches, and then you roll a dice. If that is 11 or under, those units all get +1 to attack, and including your general. Or if it's over 12, they get +2. It can only be used once a game as well. I haven't actually used this ability. Funny thing, it's just not necessary. You have a ton of attacks. It's very good, and something that I'm going to have to remember to play in the future because I just kind of slipped my mind with all the new rules. But you have so many chances to make really quality attacks that just getting another one is not always the best choice. I mean, it is if you have the command points, and in this army you probably will. But I would only advise it later in the game and mostly as kind of a strike back, honestly. I can see it being something you would do if you could make a bunch of first turn charges, but everything that I've played so far has really been powering up a single Death Star kind of unit and then running them forward and smashing into the army and letting them try to deal with that while you just kind of hold your objectives and plan who gets to be shot at like a missile next at them. But anyways, that's the Bonesplitterz. Thanks guys for listening. Like I said, I'll try to get out some new videos here pretty soon, just talking about some interesting synergies in the army. I'm really partial to the Icebone clan, so I want to get a couple games in with that as well and just let you know what my thoughts are. Well, thanks for everybody coming to the channel again. I really appreciate it and hope to see you guys soon.